idea how much people within WNBC hated him. When I took the job with Roz, I had to join a union, Narrated, the National Association of Broadcast Engineers and Technicians. In broadcasting, unions have a lot of power and everyone's role is clearly defined. If you handled any kind of equipment, like the traffic scanner, you had to be a member. It was insane how detailed the restrictions were. If I was in the field reporting a story, I had to get permission to hold my own mic. But if I didn't have written permission to turn the volume up on the headphones myself, I'd have to ask a sound engineer on site to do it for me. One afternoon, shortly after I spoke with Howard, the head of Narrated came by my cubicle and said, "Hey, Gary, can I speak with you for a minute?" I'd never spoken to the guy, but said, "Sure." Then he led me to an old NBC green room that hadn't been used in years. We sat on the couch and he said to me, "Word is going around you're up for a job with Howard." "I am," I said. I knew the union hated Howard because he turned everything on its head. He didn't care about who was allowed to hold what microphone. He just wanted to make great radio and worried about consequences later. "Well, I just want you to know that the union does not look kindly on him, and if you work for him, it will seriously damage your future in Narrated." Really? Narrated? I was trying to get out of Narrated. The next day, Judy DeAngelis, a high-profile reporter for WNBC, came by my desk. "Do you have a second?" she asked, and led me to the same green room I had gone to with the guy from Narrated. "I heard you might go to work for Howard Stern." "It's possible," I said. "Well, I don't think they're nice people," she said. "You seem like a nice kid, and you're just getting started, and you should give it a second thought, because they are really not very good people." What the fuck? 2 people in senior positions at WNBC who had barely spoken to me were now telling me not to work for Howard? More than anything, it made the Stern show seem even more enticing. I thought, this must be some fucking show if they're telling me I don't want any part of it. It's like when your parents tell you not to look at porn online. It becomes all you want to do. A couple of days later, I got a call from Fred. He wanted me to come back and see Howard again. This time he told me to try and dress a little bit nicer. This is a professional organization. I didn't think twice about it and just did as Fred told me. I put on the gray pinstripe suit. It was August 31st, 1984, and it was brutally hot. I had pit stains when I walked into Howard's office, and Fred, who was there too, just started laughing hysterically. I think he was a little shocked that I took him seriously, but it made him think, this sincere little fucker wants the job. Howard said to me, "You're hired, temporarily. Let's see how it goes for a month." The whole thing lasted 30 seconds. I didn't care how long it lasted, and I didn't have any expectations. All I thought was, I have my NBC ID and a full-time job at the station. The next time I look for a job and someone asked me if I had experience, I could say yes. Little did I know that 26 years later, I'd still be waiting for that opportunity.
And now more conversation with the Booey.
So, Fred, at the end of every chapter, I'm talking to people that I talk about in the book, and of course you and I were at NBC together. So my first question to you is, when you met me, what was your first impression of me?
You seemed like a really likable guy. I know the good thing to say, well, he's got funny teeth, he's got smelly breath, he's goofy, he collects cartoon art. The truth be told, I liked Gary from the first moment I met him. No wonder he was Mr. Popular in high school.
You know, the one thing I remember is when I started working for you right away, you were really nice to me, like you took your time to explain stuff to me. I always thought that was really cool, as opposed to being like, hey, I got this kid working for me, but I can't stop and explain every little thing. Why were you doing that?
You know what? There's too many shitheads in this business. And
we've met a lot of them.
And sometimes I've been known to be one. You just ask various people from the past. The thing is, if you're nice to me, I'm usually pretty nice back. If you're not nice to me or not respectful to me, I might turn into an asshole too. But you were always respectful, you were always a good guy, and you were eager to learn.
I was. Did you ever think we'd still be here after all these years?
Here's the deal. Back in Washington, D.C., when I first hooked up with Howard, I thought the show, if we were lucky, was going to last 3 years. Then when we got to NBC, I'm going, we're lucky if we're going to make it 3 months. And then when we went to K-Rock, it was like, can we recapture any magic that we had anywhere? And here we are, like over 30 years later, still talking about this
Yeah, I'm
shit.
a little surprised myself. Last question. This is, remember my wedding?
Yes.
I have the story in the book about the whole hands up thing with Scott the engineer.
Oh, yes, hands up, baby.
So what do you remember
up.
about that? Because I just remember being, Mary and I were so against that song, and then the next thing I know, you and Jackie were on the bar doing hands up.
You know what? I think it was one of those situations just got out of control. I know you were definitely against it, and I think Scott was an unwitting dupe.
But we ended up loving it.
Not to, you know, I think he was asked a few times, no, I can't do hands up. And then somehow somebody, whether it was Jackie or whomever, convince Scott, no, this is the right thing to do. Gary really wants this. So it's a good thing that like Jackie or I didn't have anything like, no, we really want to kill this goat in the middle of the floor. Gary really wants this.
Well, Fred, man, it's been great working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Chapter 20. Boy Gary, Tassels, and a Snow Bunny.
Before I got the job, whenever I hung around the station in the afternoon looking for stuff to do, I'd see Lee prepping the studio for Howard. Every day he walked by with a drum, a cymbal, a sound machine, a megaphone, and some papers piled on top of it all, which were notes Howard wanted in front of him during the show. It was a long walk for Howard from his office to the studio. He had to trek down a narrow hallway, then through the main hallway on the second floor, past reception, and finally to the studio, accessible only with a key card. It was a haul if he had to carry all that stuff. On my first day, I became the carrier of the drum, the cymbal, the sound machine, and the megaphone. I felt so happy and proud. I felt like I was carrying the Olympic torch in the opening ceremonies. I was the new producer. During his reign, Lee had come to be known as Boy Lee on the show. And while I carried the props into the studio, Lyndon saw me and stared for a second and said out loud, "Boy Gary? Nah, it will never stick." The show started at 3 p.m. The intro was Ronald Reagan introducing the Boston Celtics during a visit to the White House after they had won the NBA title, butchering every single player's name. After the intro, Howard came on the air at 3:04. I really wanted to be there when Howard flipped the microphone for my first day. I thought maybe he'd mention me or have me on to talk for a few minutes. But at 2:45, he handed me an envelope and asked me to run it up to his agent's office at 45th and Madison. That was a 15-minute walk. There was no subway that went directly there, and if I took a cab, I'd get stuck in traffic. I decided the only way to get it done and be in the studio when we hit the air in 19 minutes was to sprint. So I did. I ran faster than I ever did in my life, a blur of black hair. My hustle paid off. I was panting and sweating, but I was there. And instead of getting made fun of for looking like I was about to die, Howard praised me on the air. "I am impressed with this new boy," he said. I gave him an errand to run, and he ran it twice as fast as Lee ever did. This boy Gary, he may turn out to be pretty good. Then he asked me about being Italian and if I was circumcised. And finally, Robin pointed out that I looked like John Oates down to the last hair follicle. I had arrived. I was on the air almost daily from the start. The only person who enjoyed that more than me was my mom. Her son was on the radio, and people were recognizing his name. She felt she was, by proxy, worthy of attention, too. I was still humping it back to Uniondale at the end of every shift. The job didn't pay enough for me to get my own place in the city,